Reed, who is a CEO and entrepreneur and the host of a podcast called Tech in Motion. And he is giving us some of his time, his knowledge. And let me ask my next question. My biggest question for you, as soon as I saw your site, and I'm like, I was jealous, man. I was like, this site is really good, man. I was going through it. I was
I
like, damn,
appreciate it.
I gotta up my game. This man is he's not playing it right. He's not playing games here. If you guys are interested in interfacing with Will Reed, look at the link in description below. Let me see. So my question was, what are your challenges, your biggest challenges being an entrepreneur?
This is such a good question. And this is one of those things where it is a completely different mindset to be an entrepreneur versus somebody that has a 9 to 5 job where you've been hired, you're a W-2 or even a 1099 employee. Usually you're doing one thing and the infrastructure that you're falling in on is already built. So I'll use my latest, like my last private sector job. So this was a company based out of the Midwest. Actually, I'll shout them out. Heartland Solutions or Business Systems. They were an organization they did IT services support, network infrastructure support, and then they also did cybersecurity consulting. And so when I got there, all their HR was already built. I had a full onboarding, had interviews, multi-stage interviews that were built in. They had all their accounting systems were online. They had a training program that was in place. They had, and that's just getting into the organization. They had policies and procedures already established. They had all the tax forms and all of that was already established. Then I got into my individual departments. I had some light training I had with the individual departments. I got onboarded there, familiarized. I got to side saddle with people that were going through different interviews, or I'm sorry, different, when I say interviews, they were doing risk assessments and they were doing interviews with different stakeholders as a part of that risk assessment, asking them questions to ascertain what levels of controls were implemented, how they were implemented, those types of things. So I was able to sit in on that stuff. All that stuff, the SOPs were already pretty much established. And then they had systems where like they had all of our tickets, all of my work was all captured in a system. And so you contrast that with when I started my business, none of that stuff was in place. I had to do all of that myself. And so like on the one hand, and if anybody's interested in venturing out into entrepreneurship, I highly recommend the book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And he illuminates the challenge that we don't always see. So when we get skilled in a particular area as a technician, as a practitioner, so I got really good at building security programs and doing risk assessments and building out documentation. And one of the reasons why I ended up going my own route and starting my company is because I live in the Augusta, Georgia area. And if anybody's familiar, last year there was a cybersecurity attack on the city of Augusta. And the city of Augusta is right next to a major military installation from the cybersecurity perspective. So on the Army side, the capital of cybersecurity for the Army is Fort Eisenhower, formerly Fort Gordon. And so a lot of the cybersecurity resources that are in this area are oriented towards supporting Fort Eisenhower. Then there's the Georgia Cyber Center, which is a $100 million facility that is geared around cybersecurity education and services. But if you look at the surrounding areas, which is commonplace in most areas, local municipalities don't have a big cybersecurity budget or personnel on hand to be able to affect change and be able to address cybersecurity risk. Small, mid-sized businesses as a whole don't have cybersecurity programs and cybersecurity personnel that they can have to address cybersecurity risk. And so I pay taxes here. My kids go to school here. And so when I see things like the school system maybe not implementing the best cybersecurity practices, I feel some kind of way about it. So I wanted the capability to be able to affect change in my local area. That being said, I think being able to apply my technical know-how and then build a business, I wanted to jump right in to do that stuff. But in order to do that, I have to build all that unsexy stuff, HR, accounting, like starting an LLC and applying for an EIN and then getting business checking accounts and establishing my own documentation. So again, I left that private job and built a bunch of products and tools and all that on their side. And then I had to come out and I couldn't bring any of that stuff out there with. So I had to start from scratch again. So that's a big challenge that I had going from being a 9 to 5 worker to being an entrepreneur. So like this, just the unsexy back end
Yes.
office processes. And then the last thing I'll say is I want to be that type of voice and beacon for cybersecurity for this community, but also provide valuable services to people that are trying to break into cyber. But when you're starting a business, nobody knows you exist.
Right.
And outside of common knowledge and like what you may think, building a website doesn't automatically inform people that you exist, because you got to do
Yep.
SEO optimization to make
Imagine
sure that
that.
you show up. And then you have to post consistently on your website so you have update content so that Google rates you, and so you actually show up on those pages. And then there's advertisement that you got to spend money to go and advertise. And then there's marketing. Then how do you create like all of that stuff has nothing to do with pure cybersecurity, GRC,
Yeah.
security program development. It's all the back end stuff. So that's what I believe like my major challenge was, like transitioning my mindset from being
Yes.
what Michael Gerber calls a technician to being a business owner and an entrepreneur.
What was the name of that book again? Michael is by Michael Gerber.
Yeah, the E Myth Revisited. Do I have that? Yeah, I do. I do have that book.
Okay.
So if anybody sees that,
Oh man, I've seen that cover so many times. That's wild. Okay, yeah, I'll just check that out. It's I've seen that many times. Man, thanks for the insight. I gotta say, you're doing a great job. Your site looks amazing. It's very professional. I see your podcast out there. You went for the big dog. You went straight for the doctor. You got him, and it's damn man. This guy's he's making moves out here. So yeah,